Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the February 27th meeting of the Oklahoma City Planning Commission. I'd like to call us to order, and before we get started, just have a few housekeeping items to go over. If you have a cell phone with you, please silence or turn it off. If you're here to speak on an item and are not the applicant, we ask that you fill out one of the forms available in the hall and provide it to Jared or Elena down here. And when it's the item that you'd like to be heard on comes up, we'll call you to come to the podium. When you come to the podium, please give your name and address for the record and all the viewers watching at home. You'll have up to 5 minutes to speak. If you're here to speak on an item with a large group of people, we encourage you to elect a representative to speak on the group's behalf and share the group's concerns. And if that's the case, some additional time will be considered for that person. Where several speakers are going to speak on the same item, we ask that you just do your best to limit repetitious comments and limit it to concerns that we haven't heard from previous speakers. Just try to keep things moving and keep it efficient. Please direct all your comments and questions to the commission. If necessary, we'll ask an applicant or staff to respond to your comment or question. And then lastly, we just want to let you know we appreciate your presence here today and taking time away from other obligations to be here. And we just ask for your assistance in upholding the decorum of the meeting. And please refrain from speaking from the audience. So with that, we'll begin and with the receipt of the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to receive the minutes of February 13th, 2025.
A motion to receive the minutes. It's been seconded by Commissioner Privet. Please cast your votes. Minutes are received. Next, we have continuance requests and uncontested requests.
Item 15 is case C-7692, request to defer to March 27th, and item 16 is case PC-10950, request to defer to March 27th.
I'll just ask if there's anyone here to be heard on any of those items. All right, seeing none, I just need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the uncontested requests as written.
We have a motion to approve the uncontested requests. It's been seconded by Commissioner Govine. Please cast your votes. And those items are continued. New requests.
We have 3 new requests. Item 7, case PUD 2054, request to defer to March 27th. Item 11, SPUD 1685, defer to May 8th. And item 12, SPUD 1708, defer to March 13th.
Anyone here to be heard on those items? All right, I see none.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the new requests as read.
We have a motion to approve the new requests. It's been seconded by Commissioner Govine. Please cast your votes. And those are approved. All right, that brings us to the public hearing portion of the docket and the consent docket.
Item 1 on the consent docket is case C-7713, final plat of the enclave at Oakdale, located north of East Hefner Road and west of North Coltrane Road. Item 2 is case C-7718, final plat of Barline Industrial South, located north of Northwest Expressway and west of North Morgan Road. Those 2.
All right, I'll just check once again. Anyone here to speak on those items? All right, we just need a motion for the consent docket.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent docket.
A motion to approve the consent docket. It's been seconded by Commissioner Meek. Please cast your votes. The consent docket is approved. All right, now items to be heard individually, and item 3.
This is case number PC 10959, application to rezone 10931 Northwest 10th Street from I-2 to I-3.
All right, is there an applicant present?
Good afternoon, Mark Grubbs, 1800 South Sarah Road. On behalf of the application, this is an approximate 8.5-acre tract located at 10th, just north of 10th Street, and railroad tracks on the north. It's in an industrial area directly adjacent to I-3 on the west. Comp plan supports this application. Staff supports the application. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I've not received any notification of any protest on this.
This is my ward. I didn't hear anything from anyone as well. I think it's a pretty straightforward application and fits in this area, so I'm in support of it, but I can't make a motion.
Mr. Chair, no one here to speak on this?
I do not have anyone signed up to speak.
Any commissioners with anything extra? No. There are no TEs, so with that, I would like to recommend approval of PC 10959.
A motion to receive, to recommend approval of the item. It's been seconded by Commissioner Meek. Please cast your votes. And that item is approved. Item 4.
This is case PC 10961, application to rezone 4100 Northwest 23rd Street from R1 to C1.
We have an applicant present. Staff, do we know, have we seen that? We can move this to later on
Yeah,
in the
the
docket.
applicant texted me earlier and asked for the address of City Hall.
Okay,
and
so we might just need
yeah.
to wait a little bit. Okay. All right, we'll come back to this one and we'll move on to item 5.
Item 5 is PUD 2055, application to rezone 721 Northeast 50th Street from PUD 1670, PUD 344 and HNO Overlay District to PUD 2055.
Good afternoon, Mark Zidzow with Johnson & Associates on behalf of the applicant. Representatives of Red Ridge and the Kirkpatrick Foundation are here as well to answer any questions you might have. Before you, I think, is one of the more exciting projects that I've had the opportunity to work on. And this property in particular is a fairly special piece with a long history. I think Commissioner Powers might be the only person on the commission when we last brought this forward for rezoning. This was land that was owned by Hobby Lobby and I think Chesapeake, and through land swaps ended up with the Commission of the Land Office owning it. And so when this was rezoned back in 2018, it was done so for a large, very intense town center concept with hundreds of apartments and hundreds of thousands of square feet of commercial and office space. With change in direction at the Commission of the Land Office, it went back out to auction, and our client has purchased it with the sole intent of a nature preserve. And that's rare. I think often we stand up here proposing developments adjacent to neighborhoods, and we're often told, why can't it be a park? Why can't we just preserve the trees? And this application is seeking to do exactly that. In a part of town that I think needs cross timber preservation and forest preservation. And so the staff's recommended approval with no TEs on it, but their staff report under plan conformance considerations notes that no compatibility issues were identified and that the proposal means trees and habitat will be preserved, achieving many of the policies in the comprehensive plan. We did receive a few support letters. We did receive one protest letter from a neighbor, Ms. Sellers. I've had the opportunity to talk to her several times, explaining what the project was, and I've shared some exhibits and legal descriptions with her showing property lines. I'm not sure if she's here today. I anticipate that she is. And then that's the only formal protest we've received. I was handed just before the meeting a document about the Deep Fork Trail. Our project in no way prevents the Deep Fork Trail from happening. We've requested someone from Parks be present. I'm not sure if they were able to, but Mr. Butler might be able to address this. What we're asking is that that trail conversation continue to be had outside of the zoning process. This project is not preventing a trail from occurring. We're simply seeking to strip the land of really development potential. Through the neighborhood meetings that occurred, our client looked at the current PUD that's in place and said, we can probably do this. We can operate a nature preserve under a very intense PUD. But I think what was determined was this is showing the community, the neighbors, that this won't be developed. So we filed a new PUD and we've stripped out all of those intense uses and really left it as an agricultural-based nature preserve PUD. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but we would ask for your recommendation of approval today.
All right. This is Commissioner Pennington Ward, but he's not here. Do any other commissioners have questions, comments?
Did you want to comment about the trails and that process moving forward?
Yes, I can. So this is, as was represented, the Deep Fork Trail there in the blue. The general intent was to have an alignment roughly following the Deep Fork Creek. So whether that be on the south side or the north side, of course, if it's on the south side, the city would have to go through and purchase the right-of-way or get an easement, purchase an easement. It's possible also that it might be feasible to do it at least on portions on the north, which is ODOT right-of-way, or there's another property owner to the north there as well. So those conversations are ongoing with the property owners and ODOT.
Well, I feel fairly confident that a solution will be reached there. Is there anybody signed up to speak?
I do have a couple signed up to speak, yeah. We ready to hear from them? All right, Mr. Pace? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for hearing me. I'm Russell Pace Jr. I live at 6212 South Shore Drive in Oklahoma City, Ward 1. I don't want to be here today. I want to be out on the trail riding my bicycle or somewhere warm, somewhere cool, the place that I thought we were building in Oklahoma City. I've spent 8 years on the Trails and Sidewalks Subcommittee for MAPS 3. I spent 4 years as chair of the Connectivity Committee for MAPS 4 and also chaired the subcommittee for connectivity. So I feel like I speak for a lot of people that have been involved in this process over the year, not just myself. I asked today that they give us some more time to study this PUD. It was first came to our attention yesterday with the Steve Lackmeyer. Through some diligent research, we came up and we're really not prepared to speak to the PUD in particular. But the gentleman from Johnson said that nothing in the existing PUD precludes them from doing what they want to do. What it does preclude is the trail that was language in the PUD when they purchased the property. It said that they would work with us. It's been, what, 23 months since you purchased the property? Approximately 2 years. So they've had adequate time to prepare. If we'd known about this, when I say we, I mean the people that ride bicycles, the pedestrians, the citizens that have come to these meetings over the years, ACOG that's committed funds to this. This trail has probably spent about $8 to $12 million bringing it to this point. I personally have walked this area looking at where the trail should go and how it could go. It's very difficult and very unpopular to do any of the three things that are yet to come from the city telling us what those alternatives might be. So I'm here today to simply ask that we defer this till the opposition's had some time to look at it, and as well as the Planning Commission. Because I know on consent items, we don't always have the time to give our full attention to it. For instance, in this PUD, item 912, they're asking an exemption from building sidewalks around the property. This is something that Plan OKC, Plan Bike Walk Plan OKC is requiring. So I would simply ask today that we get a deferral on this for at least 90 days. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, I have Mr. Warrior. Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon. Zenithan Warrior. I live at 5712 North Lottie Avenue, the area. I realize that this particular piece of property is should be very special here for the Planning Commission. This property is located within a central core of the city and is actually the gateway to the state capitol. As you enter the North Boulevard from I-44 traveling south, you can see that Capitol Dome all the way from the intersection all the way to the site there on Lincoln Boulevard for that. So it's a very, very lucrative area, lucrative piece of land, and it's very special in that it never has been developed at all. No type of development done, and we don't find within our great Oklahoma City area, we have over 100 acres that never has been developed at all with that. So I think it's a very special piece of property and something that we really need to look at what is be the best use for that particular piece of property. I live in a neighborhood that's just east of the property on the other side of Kelly Avenue, Cashin's Wildwood, and our neighborhood, along with surrounding neighborhoods in the area, had a very vested interest when the zoning application was back in, I think, about 5 or 6 years ago. I believe it was PUD 1640, but they had the PUD number. And I just kind of remember that particular number because it's something I kind of really got invested in because it's so close to our particular piece of property I have for that. But I know that my neighbors, along with the neighbors there to the south and the other neighborhoods such as Burr Oaks, Thompson Woodland Edition, Richardson Wildwood, Wildwood Hills, Wildwood Heights, those subdivisions in the particular area are very excited that this property is not going to be zoned for residential or commercial use for that. So we're very supportive of being a nature preserve as it's been outlined in the application I have for that. Where I live on my Taker Street on Lot 8, just a block away, just north of me, there's one of my neighbors that owns 40 acres of land. And that land butts up right there to Deep Fork River that we're talking about. He has received a USDA certification for conservation in a particular area. On those 40 acres, they've been responsible to planting about 400 trees in that particular area. So we're very, very conscious of the special areas we have with that. And I don't know if any of y'all have known that or have seen that, but I guess it's been maybe close to 10 years ago, there was a tree canopy study that was done in a particular area. Quite a bit of money was done on that particular tree canopy study, and it did designate that central part of Oklahoma, from up there from Edmond on down to past Norman and on further south, that is considered to be the cross timbers areas of a particular region. It's very significant because that's a region where we have the prairie lands as we go to the west, are starting to be developed, and not that many trees in a particular area for this. We have a lot of natural trees of various sizes of oaks in that particular area that's really great for a section of land for that. So I'm very supportive of that. If you get on I-44 and you start at Western and go east on I-44, then you'll be passed through a section of that highway that's Reverend W.K. Jackson's Memorial Parkway. And as you look to the south, as you pass Lincoln Boulevard, there's a beautiful view of this 133 acres of Red Ridge area that you have for that. It's a very beautiful, pristine area to have for that particular section of land for that. Also, as you look at that piece of land, if you can imagine I-44 in Kelly, and that's where the Deep Fork River goes under on I-44. You go to the east toward the zoo. That is the first phase of the Deep Fork River Trail that has been completed. It's about 0.7 miles right along Grand Boulevard as Grand Boulevard runs right there in front of the zoo area for that area. There is also a Grand Boulevard as part of the trail system that's over there by the Lincoln Park as you go down to the south area. There's also a Grand Boulevard trail system to the south that we have over there to the west. There is a lot of Grand Boulevards throughout our central part of the city. And I found when I was at a workshop some time ago at West 10 shop, there was a person who worked with the Community Foundation, Oklahoma City Community Foundation, along with the director of the History Center was there, and talked about the history and development of this bigger city. For that, before we had motorized vehicles that were running around here, before automobiles were created, we had to have some way to circle around the city. And the way in which we circle around the city, the mother lode was the part of the Grand Boulevards. So that's why we have Grand Boulevards on the north side, the south side of the city, the east and the west side of the city, a particular area. Now that Grand Boulevard area was set aside when they had the master plans for the OKC master plan, the bike walk master plan they were talking about. They were using those existing boulevards as a key areas of where we can have a trail system that will go around the entire city area. This Deep Fork Trail is the last missing piece of the entire loop around the area. Everything's finished. You start from we started at Lake Hefner and go down to the trail that goes down to the Overholster. We had that pedestrian bridge that goes across Interstate 44. We have the Wiley Post trails around the area. You have trails that go down to the Oklahoma River, going back east, and then you go back up north along the Katy Trail, up there by Lincoln Park Zoo. Those are all incorporated within the mother lode that was created and was necessary for various traveling through that over 100 years ago, that area. So that's the reason why that particular region was selected as a good spot for having a trail around a particular area that we could safely travel around the area using active transportation. People, no matter what their particular abilities may be for bicycles, we have walking particular areas, all those various neighborhoods back to the area have connections to that regions of the area for that. So that was the reason why we had that particular section there for that. So that's why we had this particular trail, this second phase of trail that was designated to go through the northern part of this particular piece of property along the Deep Fork River for that area. So that's kind of where we are kind of with that. All the other pieces of that trail has been complete for that.
I'm going to ask you to wrap up in 30 seconds.
Okay, sure. So in keeping with that, I just have one request, and I guess again necessarily it's not going to be a must or a shall, but something that the staff will consider, and then also the owners of the property, one TE. I hope they would look at, and one I would add with that the owner will work with the city of Oklahoma City on the coordination of the trail construction plan along the Deep Fork River Greenway. And if available from Parks Department, the trail system shall be depicted on the specific plan. So I just would hope you would give that TE some consideration as we move forward. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Appreciate you coming down today. I do see our park director sitting in the front row, so I wanted to ask her if she wanted to say a few words on this application's impact to the Deep Fork plans.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me here today. Melinda McMillan Miller, Parks and Recreation Director. I've been working very closely with the Kirkpatrick Family Foundation on this very property and trying to determine a better path for the Deep Fork Trail to connect between Kelly and Lincoln. Currently we're working with ODOT with I-44 and the right-of-way we have and the easements we have between ODOT and the river itself on the north side of the creek, Deep Fork Creek, to try and find a best path forward there. And then based on those conversations we're having with ODOT and then back with our consultant team with Half and Associates, we will come back to the Kirkpatrick Family Foundation with the alternatives that we've come up with and then just find our best path forward. But we are working very closely with the foundation on this, and we understand their concerns about a trail. We also have been, of course, advocating for the public's need for this trail connection. It's a really vital connection, and the foundation recognizes that as well. So are there any questions that you all may have of me? I'm happy to answer them for you.
Any questions? No? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I have zero concern that will not get done. I think the city is on it, the foundation is on it, and we know that the people who use the trails are on it, so.
I was just going to address a couple comments that were made. One was regarding sidewalks. we are not exempting ourselves from constructing sidewalks along 50th, Lincoln, or Kelly when or if anything happens that would necessitate the construction of sidewalks. I think that's fairly standard language. You do not burden a property owner to construct sidewalks if they're not constructing anything. So in the PUD, we lay out the parameters in which we would construct sidewalks and at what time. And then the old PUD language that was brought up, in the old PUD, there was language that said the property owner would work with the city on the trail. No easement was granted. It was not binding language. And I think what we've shown with Melinda and with what Jeff has said is we've actively been working with the city on that location for the trail. So with that, I'm happy to answer any additional questions, but we would ask for your recommendation of approval today.
Just a question, Mark, with that TE or without? I mean, I know it's redundant, but
Without the TE, we're currently engaged with conversations with the city, and we do not want to burden the PUD with something that we're doing outside of it.
I'll give you 60 seconds.
You guys do an incredible job. It's difficult to be up here. The city should have gotten an easement through that property when it went to the, back to the school commission. We didn't do that. We have the opportunity to correct that today. So all I'm asking for is a delay. They've already admitted that they can do whatever they want within it. They can proceed with their plans. But if the recommendation comes back on I-44 that there should not be a trail there, we will have a missing link. So let's at least wait for the people that we've asked to study to come back with the alternatives. Thank you for allowing me to speak again.
You're welcome. So,
I would just point out, and city attorney can correct me, but the conversations we've had with staff is the PUD process, you are not allowed to take an easement for a trail through this process. We're committed to continue to work with them, but whether the trail happens or not is really outside of this PUD. The city has a process for that that is not through zoning.
yeah, I mean, yeah, what I was going to say is, I mean, I don't think there's anything that prohibits an easement getting acquired in the future, but we cannot require them to put an easement in here. So,
I was going to ask a question. So, I mean, the Commission for Land auctioned off the property, which was bought by your client. And how long ago did that happen?
Less than 2 years ago? August of 2020?
Okay.
August of 23.
Maybe the timing, yeah, it sure would have been nice had there been an easement created, and as a condition of purchasing that land for auction, they bought it with the easement for the trail already in place, but I guess that didn't work timing-wise and how things.
Yeah, and so when the city was pursuing that easement, when the city was pursuing that easement at that time with the Commission of Land Office, the Commission of Land Office had determined that they were going to be divesting themselves of that property and were not willing to do the easement at that time. Mm-hmm. That's why we weren't granted the easement.
Okay.
Because it's not going to end up inside the PUD anyway, so.
Yeah, I think we all think, or at least I think this is, a good use for the land and want to support it, but I equally want to see the trail, ensure that the trail happens. So, what's the objection to the TE if it has no real legal bearing?
it's just goodwill.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
that's the
something-
hard part that I'm struggling with is like add a TE, it may not have teeth. Are we really achieving anything?
If I were,
And no one wants to delay it, but
if I were
that's
concerned that there was not like a solid plan in place to get the trail done, I might feel the same way, but I have zero concern about that. I mean, the trail's going to happen.
Yeah, I
There's no
agree.
question in my mind about that. Whether it will happen within the confines of this PUD or not, remains to be seen, I guess. Whether it's going to be north or south of the creek, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't see any point in adding that.
It's also not enforceable. And I think we talk a lot about TEs and whether it can be enforced. Saying someone will work with someone in a PUD, there's an entirely separate process for easement acquisition that would be done. But we've spent,
There is a vehicle legally to do this, and so one way or another, it will get done.
Okay.
Yeah, understood. Yeah.
I think we're just ready for a motion then.
Approval, item number 5, PUD 2055.
Have a motion to recommend City Council approval of PUD 2055. It's been seconded by Commissioner Noble. Please cast your votes. And that is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 6.
Item 6 is PUD 2056, application to rezone 723 Southwest 149th Street from AA to PUD 2056.
Good afternoon, David Box, 525 Northwest 11th Street. Here on behalf of the applicant. It's not quite a nature preserve, but it is a pumpkin patch, so perhaps even more exciting. So this is an expansion of the Orr family farm, if you're familiar with that. They're expanding a portion to the north as well to the south. The south expansion is intended to be overflow parking. It's not needed throughout the entire year, but if you've been there in the fall, when a lot of their activities are ramping up, parking becomes a problem. So there is one TE, and we agree to it. Surely no one could fight a pumpkin patch.
Commissioner Newman, this is Ward 5.
Do we have anyone signed up?
No, I don't. We have no anti-pumpkin people.
No anti-pumpkin, good. I went to the facility, took a tour of it. I'm familiar with it. I don't have any issues with anything they're asking for, so.
Okay.
Unless anyone has an objection, I would like to make a recommendation for approval.
All right. We have a motion from Commissioner Newman to recommend approval. City Council. That's been seconded by Commissioner Meek. Please cast your votes. And that item passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to go back to item 4 now.
I'm going to sit down.
Is there a Mr. De Leon in the crowd? Come on up.
Good afternoon. My name is Jonathan Reyes. I'm here on behalf of Manolo de Leon. I am his uncle. So we are wanting to rezone 4100 Northwest 23rd to commercial C1. Our intentions are to turn this into a barber shop. Is there any questions?
Commissioner Meek, this is your ward. You want to lead the discussion?
There we go. Okay. Yes, thank you, Chairman. Do we have anyone signed up to speak regarding this?
I do not.
Okay. I spoke with the applicant. We did have a phone call of a neighborhood association that I connected the applicant with, and they did speak, and they are in support now. So with that all happening this last week, unless any other commissioners have anything to talk about regarding this, I'm ready to recommend approval of PC 10961.
All right. I have a motion from Commissioner Meek to recommend approval to City Council. It's been seconded by Commissioner Newman. Please cast your votes. That is unanimous. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, now back to item 8.
Item 8 is PUD 2053, application to rezone 17841 North Pennsylvania Avenue from R1.
Good afternoon, David Box, 525 Northwest 11th Street. Here on behalf of the applicant, this is a PUD at the corner of Northwest 178th in Pennsylvania. The application is for a multifamily development, but we have modified it and do require things that ensure that this conforms to the R4 regs as it relates to setback and height of structures. We've had a lot of multifamily developments here recently, so you're all familiar with the regulations that exist on step down adjacent to single-family residential. We do adhere to all those as outlined in your staff report. I think it's important to note real quickly, when you look at the intersection of 178th and Penn, Both 178th and Penn are fully developed 4-lane arterials, and then when you get to the intersection, each spoke of the intersection has a dedicated turn lane. So at the intersection, each of the 4 entry points to that intersection are actually 5-lane with a fully developed traffic signal. So from a traffic standpoint, it certainly checks all the boxes you might expect to see. To the north of our site is a commercial development that's part of the Valencia. To the northeast of the site is a large church. To the east of the site is commercial. That notch that exists on the southeast portion of our site is I believe it's a daycare, and then we have a school to our south. There are 11 homes that do directly abut this, so I want to talk about that real briefly. The site plan before you, you can see, I hope, maybe you can see it on your screen better, but building 7 is that far building that's south and to the west, and then building 8. So building 7 from the west boundary is 80 feet, and from the south boundary is 77 feet. Building 8 is 80 feet from the west boundary. As I mentioned, we do adhere to all zoning requirements as it relates to setback and height. In addition, staff has 1 TE in which they have asked us to, in addition to meeting the landscape ordinance, there shall be no less than a 20-foot wide continuous landscape buffer along the boundary of the parcel where adjacent to residential use. We do agree to that as well. So we believe we have a product that is desirable, a product that fits within the landscape of the area, considering that most of the land that abuts us is predominantly commercial, and given what has already taken place with improvements in the traffic network. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Noble, this is Ward 8.
Thanks, Commissioner. Is there anyone signed up to speak?
I do have one signed up.
Let's hear from them
You want to hear
first.
from them? All right. Mr. Edward Leon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for meeting with me and allowing me to speak to you.
bet.
My name is Ed Leone. I live at 17641 Palladium Lane, Edmond, Oklahoma, 73012. I'm the HOA president of a neighborhood called the Villas of Copper Creek. We're a small community. With me today is Deb Hill. She's also on the HOA board there. I do have a petition that I have signed by a majority of our residents protesting this particular zoning change. And I just want to cover some of the concerns that we have with that. And I'll give you a copy of that. We're concerned with some traffic congestion there. There's already quite a bit of traffic in this area. There's a school there. And so at drop-off times and pickup times, in that intersection of 178th and Penn, it's very difficult to navigate through there. You may wait 2, 3, 4 light cycles to be able to take a right turn from 178th to Penn. The applicant has proposed that there be an exit of the proposed development onto Penn right there south of that intersection, which will just cause more issues and congestion there. I've also prepared, we also have a photograph of that intersection, what it looks like when parents are picking up and dropping off kids from school, that I'll give to you. Our understanding is that the proposal is for the building heights to be a 3-story, which is inconsistent with the current zoning in the area. Everything around there is a single story, all the homes and that sort of thing. A reduced height to 2-story maximum would keep it in a better scale in relation to the surrounding area. We also have some privacy concerns if the complex is composed of 3-story buildings due to the close proximity to the residences, the school, the daycare, in the Silverhawk neighborhood there. There are no considerations noted anywhere for the school or daycare in the proposal. We also have some concerns around light pollution. The PUD does not require any special regulations to reduce light spillage. We have a concern around density. Currently, my understanding is that it's set for 22 units per acre at a 19 acre parcel, so we're talking 418 units. PUD 2026 was approved just recently at the intersection of 192nd and Penn, which is just a mile up the road. And it was approved for 15 units per acre, which is probably more reasonable for the area. We have some concerns around the PUD with the building material and the aesthetics. It appears to be very basic. And to be more consistent and improve longevity, we'd like to ask for some specific regulations, remove the wood from the options, which is included in the 70% of the exterior. Lastly is the fencing. Again, in the outline, it's very basic requirements, which would include wood. Trash cans could also have a wood fence around it. And as we all know, wood just doesn't hold up as well as masonry or brick. And again, we've got that school right there, and so it's the kids. So our request would be to have additional meetings with the applicant to work through some of these issues. Thank you.
All right.
Can I give the petition and
Yes,
things
absolutely.
to you? Okay,
Thank you for coming down today.
absolutely.
So I just jotted down, I heard traffic, I heard school drop-off congestion, height, density, lighting, building materials, aesthetics, and fencing. One of the things that I wanted to know is when I kind of poked into this a little bit, I went online and ACOG has traffic counts for all of our arterial streets. So Northwest 178 is currently, and these are a year or two old, I think, these counts. But 178 is sitting at 9,000 vehicles a day. It's 178 east of Penn is like 12, and then I believe Penn is like 11. So when fully developed, as mentioned earlier, with full-on intersections and 4 lanes, our streets capacity are about 22,000 vehicles a day. So, I mean, these roads are currently, or were, when these counts were taken, at half the capacity. So just wanted to include that information as we think about traffic.
Thank you.
Ms. Box, you want to go over any of those?
Sure. So he mentioned the removal of wood as a approved building material. That's fine. So we can add a TE where we will remove wood. We had spoke this week about EFS. We can also remove EFS. So there's one TE. Perhaps TE2 will be to remove EFS and wood as an approved building material. I believe the gentleman, the neighborhood he's referring to is to the south and west. And so as it relates to that, what my client can agree to do is install an 8-foot masonry wall where adjacent to a single-family home. In terms of the school, my client can agree to install a 6-foot masonry wall where adjacent to the school property. So those are obviously heightened fencing requirements than you typically see, but in an effort to ease any concerns, in addition to all the other things offered, we can agree to an 8-foot masonry wall where adjacent to a single-family residential home and a 6-foot masonry wall where adjacent to the school. I want to make sure it's specific as to a single-family residential home because what you see just to the west of our parcel is a detention pond. There is a part of that flow goes into our site, and we actually will have a pond in the northwest corner of our site. That may be zoned R1, I don't know. We cannot go put a masonry wall up to 178th because we would then block the flow of that water. So my just kind of rough estimate was there are 11 homes, and so where we are adjacent to the single-family residential home, we will do an 8-foot masonry wall.
Do we need anything related to lighting, like the installation of zero cutoff shielded, she'll be shielded from residential areas?
Is that not already part of R4 on the downlighting? And
I believe it's already the ordinance, which we agree in the PUD that we will adhere to all municipal regulations as it relates to lighting, and my belief is that is already a part of it. Yes.
Yeah.
She says yes, it's in the code.
Okay.
I mean, I heard just to The masonry wall against the residential is a good, I think that's addressing some of the concern. I heard what I was interpreting, what I heard was a concern about the wood fencing in general. So what about the rest of the site? Is that, is there any, has there been discussions about a requirement on, is it wrought iron,
Yeah,
open, or, you know?
My belief is it'll be, so this is the same developer that's done a couple of them. Typically, along the arterial, you'd see decorative fencing and landscaping, not wood.
Opaque.
Yeah.
Right.
So with the two items we just came up with, I wouldn't think there'd be any wood fencing. I'm happy, my client's not here, but I think I'd be fine saying that we would agree to no wood fencing.
That's kind of where I was going, because in the screening regulations,
The standard does that.
the standard does allow, or maybe constructed of wood, and I'm wondering if that just gets
Stricken.
Yeah, give me one
stricken.
second.
But
That's
it
just kind of our
doesn't say,
standard language.
said wall or fence shall be, it does say and shall be solid and opaque, but that's only along where it's adjacent to residential, so you've already agreed that. Is there a requirement for a decorative wrought iron fence on the other boundaries of the site for aesthetics to the street frontage?
So it'll be wrought iron / aluminum. Wrought iron's actually, as you know, it's like a term of art.
Yeah,
but,
new school wrought iron.
Yes, we can agree to no wood fencing, but along the arterials, it'll be wrought iron, aluminum, decorative fencing.
Okay. I mean, I think that's good to say, just to write in there.
So maybe just make that TE3 along arterials, wrought iron / aluminum, decorative fencing, no wood fencing permitted within the PUD.
Yeah, that'll help with the dumpster enclosures.
Yeah.
And just another one would be maybe to allow a pedestrian access to the school per school agreement.
Sure, yeah, we're happy to do that. We'll work with the school to make that work, but we're happy to provide it if the school's willing to allow it. It would make little sense to have to walk all the way out to the arterial if there's a path that can be
Right.
secured and the school was good with it.
And
That makes sense.
with TE1, I'd like to add at the very end of it where it says adjacent to any residential use or district, which is to the 20-foot landscape buffer. The school's on R1, so I just want to make sure that 20-foot buffer goes all the way along the south property.
Sounds like pretty good.
All right. I think those are some really good additions. It'll go a long way to address some of the concerns we heard. So I think we're ready for a motion.
On the TEs, the height of building 7, does that need to be a TE?
To make that two-story?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
plenty of them. With that, I will recommend approval of PUD 2053 with TE number 1, modifying it to add or district to the end of it. TE number 2, to remove ephes and wood as construction material to the buildings. TE number 3, to take out wood as an option on fencing, to put an 8-foot tall fence against the single-family homes, a 6-foot tall fence against the school.
Was it fence or wall?
Wall.
Opaque masonry.
Masonry wall,
Or a wall?
masonry fence, whatever, I mean.
See, TE number, where am I? 4, to limit the height of building number 7 to 2 stories. Did I already do that? No.
No, that's good.
And then T number 5, to allow pedestrian access to the school per the school approval. Anything else?
I hate to do this. I had stepped away to hand a card. Sarah, I want to make
Sorry.
sure we're,
Sarah Welch, Planning Department. On TE number 1, I'm so sorry, but can we go back to that one because we're adding or district? And I just want to revisit Mr. Box's comment about the detention facility because I think the way that we've amended it potentially would require the landscape buffer against the pond. And I just want to clarify whether that should be, whether there's supposed to be a 20-foot landscape buffer on that west boundary.
so what if we said, what if we, residential use, and in addition, the entirety of the south boundary of the PUD? Does that fix that, Sarah?
Yep.
And then my sincerest apologies. What did you have for 2?
2 was the removal of ephes and wood.
Okay.
Building
3.
materials. Oh, jeez. 3 was the fence or wall, no wood fence and masonry wall.
And then, did you want to just do all the fencing in one and add, there shall be wrought iron or decorative aluminum fencing along the arterials?
Okay, and then 4, building 7, 2-story.
Mm-hmm. And 5 was pedestrian access.
Got it. Sarah? Thumbs up from Sarah.
All right. And then for Mr. Leone, so this is a recommendation to City Council. So if you have any other concerns, and this doesn't address all of your concerns, you have the ability to speak at this at City Council when it moves forward to there. All right, so we have a motion subject to the technical evaluations as read in to recommend to City Council, and it's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes.
Thank you.
That item is approved, recommended for approval. Item 9.
This is PUD 2051, application to rezone 300 Northwest 104th Street from R1, I1, and SPUD 601.
Good afternoon, Mr. Rollins.
Good afternoon, Steve Rollins, Arc Engineering Consultants, 135 Deer Creek Road in Edmond, representing the applicants. This is an item that was continued from 2 weeks ago to give us a chance to discuss and mitigate the automotive towing and impound yard use on the property that's proposed for the property, to discuss that with you and with the neighbors. I think we've had a chance to do that. One of the concerns brought up in the meeting last week had to do with dedicating the entire 9.5 acre property to this potentially disruptive use of automotive towing and impound yard. So my client has agreed to reduce that use down to the 1.29 acres in the northern portion of the property, shown as Tract B or Block 23 on the Master Development Plan. So that significantly reduces the use impact. Another issue brought up had to do with the amount of flood zone we were impacting. Of that 1.29 acres, only 0.26 acres is within the flood zone now. And that flood zone being at the northern edge of the flood zone. So that's where the flood waters would be at their shallowest there. It should be likely inches deep rather than feet deep. So avoided quite a bit of impact there. There was also some discussion about the impact to the streets. The streets in this area along Northwest 104th Street look to be standard City of Oklahoma City streets. It is a 2-lane road with borrow ditch on each side, but the asphalt looks to be in good condition, and it's a light use road. In fact, the only reason you would go down this road would be to go to the storage facility to the north of us or to go to this building. There's not much else along that road. So Morgan Towing would be using tow trucks that we've all likely seen before, just the heavy-duty trucks with flatbeds on the back of them. That would be the traffic that would be going up and down the road. So not much additional impact, over any other type of business that would be using the road. As I mentioned in the last meeting, we're also in agreement with the TEs. In particular, TE number 4 states the outdoor storage yards and areas shall be screened from the adjacent properties. Northwest 104th Streets would be screened. There are Oklahoma City ordinances that require certain things for automotive impound yards and site-proof fencing along Northwest 104th Street, landscape buffers, landscaping along 104th Street. Those will all be required for the project. I did have a chance to speak with Mr. John Walker and his son on the phone yesterday. Felt like we had a good conversation. There are property owners to the south, by the way. Felt like we had a good conversation. They were, I feel like, pleased that we were reducing the area down to only 1.29 acres. I did not, unfortunately, have a chance to speak with our neighbor to the west, Mr. Del Val. I did not have contact information for him, and no one at the city had contact information from him either, so I was not able to visit with him. I was also able to visit with Steve, who is an attorney for Mr. Sabelich. I was able to visit with him in the hallway for just a few minutes ago, and I feel like we had a good visit too. He was also concerned about the amount of area being dedicated for this use, so he was also pleased that we were reducing this area down to only 1.29 acres. Several of you mentioned going out to the site. I hope you had a chance to do that and see the site itself. As we discussed in the last meeting, there are some nice developments in the area, but this area is not quite there yet. I don't feel like it's got a little time needed, but it'll be there soon enough. I know you guys are excited for that. We're excited for that, but it's just not quite there yet. And so I say that to say that dedicating 1.29 acres to this automotive towing and impound yard use will not have any it will not prohibit the property from transitioning to whatever it needs to be in the future when the market demands it. With that, staff recommends approval. We ask for your approval. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Great. Any questions for Mr. Rollins? I do. I just want to have a better understanding of the nature of the operations, because from being a auto salvage storage yard, I mean, when the original application came, I mean, it was for roughly 10 acres of, use. And that's a lot of vehicles. And now it's being amended to, 1.3 acres. And that's a lot less. So how are you able to just get by with, an acre and a third as opposed to this whole area?
I don't know all the details of their business, but I kind of was under the same understanding as you as far as, how much area was needed. But yeah, I think they had expansion in mind whenever they first leased the property, and using the entire 9.5 acres was something they were considering. Whenever it became apparent that they were not going to likely get 9.5 acres, they made it clear to me that the 1.29 acres would work for their business. So the way I understand this isn't like a salvage yard or a pick-apart yard where people bring in cars, they sit them, they stack them next to each other, they stack them on top of each other, and they're picked apart one part at a time. These cars, whenever Oklahoma City Police Department asks them to come get a car that's sitting beside the road, they go pick up the car. The owner has 45 days to come get the car, so hopefully within that 45 days, the owner has come to get that car and taken it out of the yard themselves. After 45 days, Morgan Towing is not paid to keep that car there anymore. So it's, especially with 1.29 acres, it's in their interest to get it out of there and get rid of it. So they take it from there to an auction, salvage yard, whatever they do with it.
Okay, that's helpful.
These cars that are picked up, some of them are involved in motor vehicle accidents, and so that's why they have to be picked up.
I would assume so, yes.
And so the surface that they'd be stored on is what? I mean, is it going to be gravel?
That's correct. There are requirements in Oklahoma City Code, like I said, that there are several different options. Compacted subgrade minimum 6-inch layer of traffic bound surface course, 8 inches cement kiln dust over asphalt millings. So gravel, asphalt millings, things like that is what it would be stored on.
Did anyone sign up to speak?
I do have the three gentlemen that Mr. Rollins mentioned have signed up to speak. So, Mr. Walker?
Thank you.
Welcome.
I spoke a couple of weeks ago concerning a much bigger plan and why I didn't believe it was appropriate for this area. That higher uses were expected and had been waited for some time by many people that had owned property in this area. And as we know, there's major construction across the street. Major facilities are being built at this time, and I don't think it'll be a very long time until other major facilities join the Sabbath Lake office building on this side of the roadway to do the same thing. I am pleased to learn that they are reducing their footprint. However, a re-examination of this application has brought forward, in my mind, other considerations that need to be considered before anything changes on this property. And I'd like to refer to you to what we've seen previously. We can start with the photograph you show here. Across the subjects, it shows two blocks that are adjacent in the part that's north of it. What's not seen particularly well in that map is, and it's not called out, is a creek, Harrison Creek, that goes right down the middle of both 5-acre tracts. It begins at the southwest corner of the westernmost 5-acre property. It goes up about 250 feet northeast and then turns directly east and goes about another 700 feet across that property, where it turns back to the northeast and goes to the north edge of that property and then goes directly east over to Broadway Extension, where it goes underneath the Broadway Extension and continues northeasterly. This creek is shown in a light blue line on this application. It is shown on this front piece for this application. Down here in a note it says that this flight was taken in 2 of 22. So in 2 of 22, the creek was there. It was operating as a creek. It does what creeks do. It lets water flow downhill in an organized way, and it doesn't go through everybody's property. This is part of the application that was made for this project. As you can see, there are contour lines on this map. This is an old city map. The engineer mentioned it to me that they had found this old city map. It was prepared by them. The city had plotted out Harrison Creek across this. There's substantial topographic change here. If you notice anything about this, that there's lots of topographic lines. We can't really tell where they are. I don't know whether they're 1 foot or 2 foot elevation changes, but there's at least 10 or 12 feet of elevation change across this property, possibly as much as 20 feet, where the creek is. Here is the path of that creek across their 10-acre properties. It originates here, it's flowing to the east, it comes across this property, comes down the middle of this property, it comes up here and goes there. Somehow, mysteriously, that creek has disappeared. This is an aerial photograph taken this week showing those two adjacent blocks right here with about 100 cars on them, by the way, which is illegal, and there is no creek. The creek has disappeared. Now, interestingly, in the application, I found this document. This is where the city instructed the engineer that he must put a boundary line on it and say to excluded the use of this property. This is the graveyard of this creek. It no longer exists. Who changed it? By what order? This is in the 100-year floodplain, by the way. All of this, almost all of this property was in the 100-year floodplain.
30 seconds, Mr. Walker.
Excuse me?
30 seconds
Yes,
remaining.
sir. And finally, I'll show you that this is from FEMA. It shows it in the floodplain in 2023, in the 100-year floodplain in 2023. Something has gone wrong in the administrative work with the city or with the state or with the government. That needs to be found out about. This needs to be corrected. That drainage needs to go back through this property. Somebody needs to pay for it, and it doesn't need to be the city. Somebody is letting this happen without approval, without permits, without stuff. This needs to be stopped, and it needs to be stopped right here. I would ask the council to warehouse this property, not do anything in the future. Stop it right now before anything else changes.
All right,
And we need to
your
go
time is up.
investigate what happened. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Jesse Duvall.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for hearing me today. No one contacted me, which I'm kind of surprised. I get spammed 100 times a day. Anybody can find me. But I was just wanting to oppose the record yard going there next door. It's right next door to my property, which is to the west. I think I read somewhere that they have to have like a 300 feet radius from anywhere that's R1, which might set precedents in the future for anybody else trying to establish a record yard. And I've been in that creek with water in it, and it does flood. Really, that's my only opposition. I've been approached by people with pretty deep pockets, what it seems like to me, that are interested in development, and that would personally hurt me. I'm not sure how it stands for the future of Oklahoma City development. It looks like they have multi-million-dollar development going up and down through there. And that was just trying to state my opposition to it. So pretty brief, short.
Okay.
Is that good?
Okay, any questions for Mr. Duvall? No? Thank you for coming down.
Okay. Oh, one more thing. Originally, when it was rezoned for a nursery, I was for it, but a record yard is a long way from a nursery. And that's it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. And then lastly, I have Mr. Steve Ratliff.
I believe he left. He spoke with the applicant in the lobby.
Oh, okay. All right. So that's everyone I have signed up to speak.
Steve, you want to answer some of those questions?
I was just going to address any dirt that's been moved out there. I am not aware of any that's been moved. I did speak with someone from Morgan Towing. They said that they had removed some irrigation lines that were left over out there and cleaned up some of the landscaping mess. The creek is in the trees, so it may be hard to see on the map, but the creek has not been taken out or anything as far as I'm aware. So.
Well, I mean, when I look at the photo, I mean, I can make out the parking area behind the buildings. There would be the furthest south, track, those smaller ones to the north, and then immediately south. So I mean, it does appear that something, but that's development services, that's stormwater. Any issue there can be addressed with them. EPA. So we're looking at land use.
In this case, it's a little hard to separate those two things, but if we just want to talk about land use, I want to thank Mr. Rollins for his phone calls and offer of providing information and so on. I felt a little bit bad when we continued this case on February 13th because I was pretty sure that there wasn't any way I was going to get to yes on this, and I have not. So I just don't think this is the right place for this kind of a use. It being smaller might be, incrementally helpful, but the fact that it's in the floodway is I can't get there. I don't think, there's no chance that it will get smaller over time. And I think it is a substantial impediment to what I hope will be much better development along Broadway Extension and so forth. I know this area is really long been viewed as future expansion for industrial uses. But I think that, you know, over time, there has been enough other development closing in around it that whatever industrial uses go in there now will have to be, you know, I-1 at best. And probably really, the time for it to have any additional industrial use may have just passed, because I think there are other uses that would be conflicting with that would be better for the area, better for the city, frankly, so.
And today, in the here and now, it abuts R1 directly to the west, directly to the south, and to have this intensity right next to that zoning, to me, is a reason why I couldn't support it.
Yeah, I just can't get there, so.
I appreciate Mr. Rollins' call as well, and I do, and the mitigation steps that were taken to reduce the impact, but, and I accept also, I was trying to get there with the R1. It is probably not likely that all of these parcels will be developed as R1 in the future. However, that is what they are today. But the creek situation and the fact that regardless of reducing the footprint of this, it's still pervious material that these cars are sitting on, leaking who knows what because they're wrecked, and all that's going to the creek regardless of whether it's sitting on top of the creek or just north of it. So that's why I don't feel that it's appropriate, particularly with it's being used, you know, it's being used for a use it's not allowed right now, and grading's been done, and that's concerning. So I can't support the use on this side either.
All right. Any other questions, comments? I think we're just ready for a motion.
I'll make a motion. With that, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to deny PUD 2051.
I have a motion from Commissioner Nomel to deny PUD 2051. And I'll just remind everyone, a vote yes is a vote to deny. It's been seconded by Commissioner Meek. Please cast your votes. All right, and that's unanimous. So brings us to item 10.
Item 10 is SPUD 1673, application to rezone 11744 Hope Road from AA.
Good afternoon, Charles Allen, Allen Engineering. Wesley White and his daughter Brandy White are also here this afternoon to answer any questions. We were here back in October of 2024, continued this. I think Commissioner Powers kind of wanted us to work with staff, and I want to thank staff, Sarah and her staff, Thad Johnson. We had a team meeting with Commissioner Meek, Commissioner Powers, and councilperson Barbara Peck. I think it all went well. Went through a lot, went through in live with Sarah editing the SPUD for us, and we incorporated some manufactured home requirements and so forth. I think we got to a point where councilperson Barbara Peck was able to feel comfortable enough to support it, and so we're back here in front of you today. With the SPUD, it has been revised. It's been kind of clarified to include manufactured homes, mobile homes. There is one existing mobile home, but moving forward, 2 new homes would be manufactured and meet the single-family residential building code. There are some guidelines for the manufactured homes that have been incorporated into the SPUD. Staff is recommending approval. However, they've got one TE that limits us to 1 dwelling, which is kind of contradicting what we're trying to achieve here, which is 4 dwelling units long-term. Hopefully not hopefully, but one of those will probably end up going away. But with that, I think Brandy had some comments she would make, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. But just so we all know, we're not going to be able to agree to TE number 1.
Understood.
I just wanted to say we worked really hard on this with Ms. Powers, Mr. Meek, Commissioner Peck, or Councilwoman Peck, and this is something that means a lot to us to being able to do. And in researching, I could never find why a manufactured home needs 5 acres, but in this case, it's really the only way that we can go about being able to be together, because affordability of the manufactured homes, and every bank that I've talked to will not loan for us to build additional stick-built houses. But we are able to get manufactured home loans to place the homes on the property.
So a little bit more in that regard. She's talking about a shadow loan where they don't have to divide the property. If we were doing a standard foundation with a frame veneer house on that, we would have to divide this up. It would have to be a separate parcel to get a loan on it. And I think, and I talked to Councilwoman Peck about, the one manufactured home on 5 acres, and she's kind of feeling that maybe the city, that's an old requirement, a little outdated maybe, a lot of changes. There's a lot of stigmatism with mobile homes, and the new guidelines are a 24-foot minimum width on that, so it's not your old single wide, trailer park mobile homes. So there are a lot of things that are different. We did show on our site plan, and Commissioner Meek asked us to do that if we quarter this up, it's 5 acres, there's an acre and a quarter roughly around each site that'll support individual wells and on-site septic systems or an aerobic system, depending on what the soil test will allow. So happy to answer any questions and hope you'll support this. Getting back also, on a personal note, you talk about affordable homes. My daughter is buying her first home, and I think I told you at the last meeting in October, the average age now of a first homeowner buyer is 40 years of age, which is, I think it kind of tells you where we're headed as far as the amount of investors that are buying homes, flipping them, adding $150,000 to a house they paid $100,000 for, doing some modifications and painting. I'm looking at these houses with my daughter. The roofs need replacing, the heat and air's worn out, the driveways are busted up. Finding a good house for a first-time homeowner is difficult at best and expensive. This is an opportunity for their family to have some affordable living all on the same property. They're going to be there, whether they have to remodel the home and move out there and so forth. But it's not going to impact the amount of sewage that's developed, the amount of water that's used. They're going to be there. This is just to allow them to have their own homes and go home to their home, basically. So, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Meek, you want to lead our conversation?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I appreciate you, even though the lots aren't being split, I appreciate you showing the division being an acre and a quarter each. Do we have anyone signed up to speak?
I don't have anyone signed up to speak.
Okay. This is, and I'm looking for some input from the other commissioners. We've got, this has been deferred several times, but we did have protest letters and we had support letters, and pretty much, I don't remember, 60-40 kind of split. I have been out here. It is at the dead end of a road. If that to me is a good thing for it. If it was a mid-block of this road, it'd be a bigger deal, I do believe. At the fire department request, the cul-de-sac turnaround, city services turnaround was extended further into the property instead of being at the intersection of the property lines. So I do appreciate that. And I understand the bank situation and that they follow, the reason why that is because they follow the code, which is 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres. So they're not going they're not going to tie loans to multiple dwelling units because it's non-conforming basically right now until you get the SPUD. So with that being said, I'd take any opinions from other commissioners regarding your thoughts on this.
I'll give you mine, just a few comments on it, but I believe there was 5 protests for, 5 protests against it.
Okay.
The property is in nonconformance right now. To make this change through the SPD goes against what it's zoned in currently, with 5 landowners adjacent to the property that aren't in favor of it. I believe that I couldn't be in favor of it either.
Is there something in here about the mobile home going away?
Yes, there's
How was that arrived at? And I want to think about there's certain protections that are being placed on the future of this site so that eventually maybe, the SPUD lives on, but people don't live forever, so.
Under the uses permitted with this SPUD, there is the manufactured home limited to a maximum of 3. And then they put in, we put in the manufactured, which is mobile home residential, limited to 1 existing mobile home. Should the mobile home be removed, the replacement shall be manufactured or single-family residence. The other thing, there's a lot of trying to get this to feel better. We have tried to think of everything we could to dress it up. One of them was the 5% lot coverage, which on 5 acres equates to 10,890 square feet, which is the same ordinance as if it was an accessory structure, just like barns. So that's been put on there. And then the density has been changed to be the 4 detached dwelling units being allowed. There's also one other thing I wanted to bring up. On the west side, there's a 25-foot setback, except there is an existing carport off the existing mobile home that's there. And so it does say, should the carport be removed, no new structure can be put back there, or you have to meet the 25-foot setback. That is the updates from the last time we heard it.
Yeah. I thank you for saying that, because it helps me on this particular case, because I think it's one thing when business owners bend the rules or break the rules and operate for profit, knowingly breaking rules. It's a very different thing when we're talking about someone's home. So I feel different about that in this case. So I'm actually okay with it based on the protections that are being written in and maximum of 4. It wouldn't be, I wouldn't feel that way all the time, but in this particular location I'm familiar with, I don't think it's inappropriate.
It seems as if we're basically creating a small subdivision without calling it a small subdivision, doing it through the SPD process. It's just between that and the protest that the other landowners around it don't want it is the reason why I just can't get behind it. But.
And yeah, I absolutely respect that too. I wanted to offer the counterpoint on that. Other comments, questions? It's a tough one.
And maybe it comes from my Board of Adjustment days.
We would, yeah. I mean, that's where it's like, yeah, we would have to strike the TE and yeah, for sure.
I have to confess that I am just as torn today as I was the first time we heard this. There's no question in my mind that these folks are, sincere in both their need and their desire to do something on the property that will not adversely impact their neighbors, but will, greatly help their family. The idea of family compound, on 5 acres of land, there's nothing offensive about that to me. I can't agree with the assessment that our, one manufactured home on 5 acres is an old concept. I don't think that that's true. It's something that we've pretty staunchly enforced and adhered to over the years. through, much request and repetition. It's not like we only hear, one of these every 5 years or something. We have put these folks through a pretty rigorous process here, and I think that maybe in and of itself inclines me to vote in favor of this. But it's not without reservations and concerns, in particular the number of wells and septic systems that we're putting on this piece of property. That concerns me, frankly, but it is what it is.
1.25 acre per dwelling unit was where I was. I thought the same thing, in fact, and would be concerned with that, but it sort of just hit that threshold of an acre and a half would be preferable, but it's over an acre, so that's better in that regard at least.
Charlie, on the existing house and the mobile home on the property now,
Right.
are they on separate septic systems? And do we know what kind of septic systems
Yes.
those are?
Are they septic?
They're both septic and separate.
There are 2 wells on the site right now.
There's already 2 wells and 2 septics already.
And just to the south of this is Tradition Estates, which has 3/4 acre lots, so.
On septic.
On septic.
Yes.
And well.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
Can I say something on the oppositions that we've got?
Yeah.
Is it okay?
Yes.
for me? Okay. On all of those oppositions, they were worried about the traffic on the road. For one, us being able to be together is going to decrease our traffic that we're putting in on this road, because right now there's multiple having to go in and out for childcare, doctor's appointments, grocery store runs. But if we're all there together, it is going to decrease that to 2 people leaving a day, my sister and my sister-in-law, to go to work. Everybody else is already there. Instead of having 3 or 4 of us having to go in and out to traffic kids back and forth. And multiple people on the road. One person has a business, one of the oppositioners has a business that he has crew coming in and out every day. One person has given his house to his grandson and is living in his garage. So they've increased that traffic also. And so we're trying to decrease it by us all being together.
All right. Are we just ready for a motion?
Yeah.
I mean, I'll say one thing is, there's letters of support, there's letters of opposition, but there's no one here to speak today.
Right.
From opposition, so,
Right.
that says a little
That does
something
say
to
a
me.
lot, and I do want to go on record and say that even before the improvements we've made, in my opinion, improvements to the spud, even at the last time we heard it, I at minimum was willing to give them what they have there now and get them conforming. So this, I believe, what improvements have been done to this application have helped me quite a bit. I'm for sure not a denial. So with that being said, I'd like to move to recommend approval of SPUD 1673.
We have a motion from...
Excuse me, with removal of TE.
Yes, with removal of T number 1. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yep.
There's a motion from Commissioner Meek to recommend approval of City Council, SPUD, the SPUD's removing technical evaluation number 1. And I've lost my system here. That's been seconded by Commissioner Govee. It shows me that it's not moved. Okay, there we go.
It's trying to be suspenseful.
All right. So that item passes. It's recommended for approval.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Item 11 has been deferred. Item 12 has been deferred. Item 13.
This is SPUD 1712, application to rezone 1201 Southeast 25th Street from PUD A55.
Is the applicant present? Mr. Irish?
Yeah, Brent Irish, Moore, Oklahoma, 1605 Mark Circle. And any questions?
Can you tell us a little bit about what you're looking to do?
So this was part of I have the warehouse at 1313 Southeast 25th. That's a L-shaped warehouse, and then behind it is a radio tower. And that triangle-shaped property had been getting used for long before I bought it as for storage and materials, equipment materials, and we discovered it wasn't zone right as part of a SPUD, and bought that separately, but just want to get the zoning to match the what it's been used for.
Are you aware of the technical evaluations?
The
site shall be maintained as a storage yard with gravel or solid surface material?
Yes.
Okay. So you're in agreement with that?
Yep.
Okay. Commissioner Privet, this is your ward.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's someone signed up to speak, correct?
No, I do not have anyone
There's
signed
not?
up to speak.
Okay. Well, I'm still not real thrilled about this one, so if anybody else has got opinions on it. For the next R1, I know we said bring back a PUD, but yeah, so.
Well, one of the questions I think a couple of us had was if this is to be maintained as a storage yard with the R1 off to the east, do we want to see opaque fence along the eastern boundary?
Yeah, at the minimum, I'd say.
Is that something that you would be agreeable to? A 6-foot stockade fence or opaque fence, whatever meets code?
There's an existing fence. I was having a hard time hearing what you were saying, but you're asking that we put a stockade fence?
Yeah.
On that?
If there's one that doesn't exist, but if there's one that exists, it would just be that it would be maintained.
So it needs a site-proof fencing, is what we're saying.
Add site-proof fencing.
You have an additional buffer of landscape, but for me, I would also like to see a site-proof fence.
Okay.
I'd rather see 8 foot tall between you and the R1.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's in addition to the landscape buffer
Mhm.
that's already removed.
Yep.
And then there is in the MDS, it reads, no outdoor storage materials shall be stacked or extend above 6 feet in height or higher than a permitted fence, whichever is greater.
you
So
go
if
to
you
8.
get the 8-foot fence, I guess you get the 8-foot stack as well, but I just want to make sure you're aware of that, because that's written in already.
Yeah, I was aware of that.
Okay, and you can comply.
Because it looked to me like maybe the stuff that was stored there was higher than 6 foot anyways. But.
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Privet, anything to
That's what I'm.
add?
No, yeah, that's helpful.
So in agreement with TE1, we're adding TE2 to include a 8-foot site-proof fence.
Fencing next to the R1.
Adjacent residential.
Yeah. So with that, I'll move approval or recommendation of approval SPUD 1712 with the inclusion of TE1 as noted in the staff report and TE2 of 8-foot tall fencing next to R1.
All right. A motion to recommend City Council approval SPUD 1712 from Commissioner Privet. Been seconded by Commissioner Noble. Please cast your votes. That item is recommended for approval. Good luck. All right, brings us to item 14.
This is CPA 2024-8, consideration of a proposed map amendment to the comprehensive plan, changing the land use topology area designation from urban medium to urban low on approximately 1,600 acres of land. And we have a presentation.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Mujica Ortiz for Planning Department. Sorry, it's not. The request is to amend the comprehensive plan use map, changing the urban medium LUDA designation to urban low LUDA designation. There's going to be 7 areas that requested. Originally, we had 4 areas that was in our original CPA. Then we were requested to look at 3 additional areas, and we added to our analysis. The explanation or the reason for these proposed changes is that staff initiated a CPA request to update the urban medium-based designation LUDA in certain areas north of 50th Street to ensure consistency with current land use patterns and future growth objectives. On December 12th, the Planning Commissioners requested a staff examine additional areas for urban low designation. The review is divided into 2 groups. A, B, C, and D were the original areas. E, F, and G are the new areas that were requested for us to look at. This division was made to allow for a closer examination of both areas, ensuring a more detailed and comprehensive analysis. It's important to note that the city's comprehensive plan, Plan OKC, represents a long-range vision for the city's future and serves as a guiding framework to decision-making. While informed by current conditions, the land use typology areas in Plan OKC do not necessarily reflect current densities or 16 development patterns. Instead, the LUDAs are intended to guide development towards future outcomes appropriate for each LUDA. This is for us to take a look at the zoning for the original areas, areas A, B, C, and D. Are some of the neighborhoods that are located north of 50th Street. We can see that almost all of these areas are surrounded, but they're abutted or they're close to urban low, and the uses mostly is different types of residential. Next one. These are the neighborhoods to the south and included Mayfair Hills, that not necessarily south to 50th Street, but these are the 3 areas that we were requested to add. Mayfair Hills is area E. Here we can see that it's completely surrounded by commercial or other uses, employment uses, etc. Here, areas F and G are not necessarily completely surrounded, but are very close to 2 commercial districts of the city. In terms of the LUDA, we can see here that the neighborhoods to the north are adjacent or contiguous to urban low. It's important to mention too that here to the, let me turn on this real quick. Oh, can you go back? Okay, so here we can see the TOD. Right now, the TOD is located to the north, but due to the new BRT located a little farther to the south, in our next Plan OKC update that is coming soon, that TOD is going to be moved a little farther south. So we can see that all the neighborhoods to the north are completely close to the urban low. The neighborhoods to the south, or the neighborhoods that are the new neighborhoods, are completely surrounded or located within urban medium. The ones more to the east, like I mentioned before, are located close to a TOD and located too close to urban commercial districts. Mayfair Hills is surrounded by urban medium, plus is located within the TOD. In terms of the streets, we can take a look. The neighborhood to the north, they're mostly neighborhood streets, some minor connectors, but we cannot see any arterials or major connectors close to them. The neighborhoods to the south, I think we need to go one more. There you go. The neighborhoods, the other three neighborhoods, even though there are two mainly neighborhood streets, within some of these neighborhoods, we can find major connectors, minor connectors. Here, they have a connection directly to an arterial, actually a highway through 36th Street. And there are some arterials that are surrounding Mayfair Hills. Can we go back one? I just wanted to talk about the bus stops and some of the connectivity. The neighborhoods to the north, they do have some proposed sidewalks and some existing sidewalks and some bus stops in them. One back. Yes. These are the other neighborhoods. They do have some bus stops too close to them. This is basically the bus stops. So they do have public transportation available. One more. Specifically, this is Mayfair Hills. They're located within the BRT route. These are the existing bike facilities. We can see that there's bike facilities that are already available here in the neighborhoods that are F and G. The sidewalks, these are some proposed sidewalks. Not necessarily they're already there, but they're proposed. The ones that are funded are the ones by Klassen, and they just finished some projects in Churchill. The next one. This is the BRT route that is a couple of blocks too from the Douglas Edgemere and Edgemere. So we created this table, and the reason why we created this table is because we try to do this in an objective way. So that's why we gave them points to the neighborhoods to try to figure out a way to determine which neighborhoods, it was recommended or not to move from urban medium or urban low. We take things in consideration as age, connectivity, transit, bike network, vacant lots, zoning, street types, adjacent to UL, proximity to downtown, land use diversity index. All of this is within Plan OKC policies. If we look for what the definition of is, it talks about transportation, connectivity, it talks about diversity in uses, and that's why these are the parameters that we use to determine whether it was appropriate or not to move from urban low from urban medium. So we did the numbers, and we decided, or it was decided that those that were 13 or lower were to go to urban low, and that the ones who were 17 or higher were to remain in urban medium. So in general, the findings are the areas A, B, C, and D, the 16 development patterns matching UL characteristics, the neighborhood stability evidenced by lack of vacancy or abandonment issues corresponding to limited infill opportunities, the infrastructure system aligned with urban low expectations, suburban style land use patterns, less integration of different land uses, adjacency to existing urban low areas. For sites or areas E, F, and G, these neighborhoods are located in areas with better access to diverse uses, including residential, employment centers, retail, services, and recreational amenities. These neighborhoods have excellent street connectivity, good access to cycling facilities, and are located near public transportation options, supporting transit-oriented development, with Mayfair situated within a quarter mile of the BRT bus stop, and the neighborhood south of 50th Street positioned along the proposed route for commuter rail. Our recommendation is based on the findings above. Staff recommends changing area A, B, C, and D to urban low and retaining the other areas as urban medium. I don't know if you have any questions. No questions?
Any
Okay.
questions? No? Okay. I have a couple.
You have questions?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was going to say, I have a couple people signed up. Any comments, questions from commissioners?
And I don't know how many people are signed up, but I just would appreciate that if something has been said to just follow the rule of
Yeah, we'll just
new.
reiterate. So we do have 20 people signed up. So, that's an hour and a half of hearing. So if you can do your best to limit it to succinct comments and comments that we haven't heard 2 or 3 times before, we would greatly appreciate it. So are we ready to hear from folks? Okay. First I have Steve Berryman.
Before we start the comments, I also wanted to say that, just so everyone's aware, that the staff recommendation, we've all reviewed the packet, we have detailed information on this. Just because staff recommends something doesn't mean that's where we are. Everyone here is going to make their own decision, and I don't know where everyone stands, but I think that there have been a lot of conversations that have led up to this, particularly on the people that have been on a particular task force that has certain concerns that relate with this, and I still feel, that we made good progress on these neighborhoods. So there's the data-based approach. There's also what does that neighborhood feel like, and where does it belong in how it's built out, how it looks and feels, and how the people in that neighborhood feel, and where they feel that their neighborhood identifies with. So we're considering all that, and I think that we may very well not follow this recommendation. But thank you. Sorry.
Mr. Berryman.
He didn't take my time, did he?
No, he did not. I did not. We did not start the clock.
It was a great move, filibuster. Hi, my name is Steve Barrymore. I live at 2113 Northwest 43rd Street. My neighborhood is Community 2000, and that's just to the south of a lot of the neighborhoods that you just saw on the map. I'm not too sure about how we got left out of a lot of discussions, but to give you a little bit of a description of where our geographic area is, you can think about Northwest 39th up to Northwest 50th, from Pennsylvania on the east to about Billon or Villa on the west, depending upon which blurry map you look at, because it's a little bit hard to discern at times. Our neighborhood is very close proximity to Belle Isle, Mayfair Hills, and a handful of the other neighborhoods that you just heard mentioned in this lady's presentation. In Community 2000, our homes were built generally around 1959, 1960, all the way up to about 1970. So we match some of the profiles in those other areas that were mentioned. Our homes are horizontally built, tight access between the homes. There's no detached garages. There's no long driveways, the things that mainly an ADU would be looking for to have. So our physical characteristics are very similar to all of the other neighborhoods that are being considered to be taken out of this plan, or to be considered to be, I guess, low use. I'm not a real estate attorney, so some of these terms are a little bit unfamiliar to me. But I would like to make one point. So what is my point for being up here is that we do have some uniqueness in our neighborhood that is not in any of those other neighborhoods that were mentioned, and also probably is pretty unique in terms of the city as well. Within a 4-block radius of my home, there are 6 apartment complexes, 6, and they're all pretty good size. These complexes add a substantial amount of traffic to our neighborhood back streets. The number of rental units that is currently available is somewhere between the neighborhood of 450 and 500. As you look, if there's any opportunity here at all, and I don't know whether there is or not, but I'd like to make my final bottom of the ninth 3 and 2 pitch on this. As you look at any possible revisions, I respectfully request that you take a look at the density and the increased traffic that we already have in our neighborhood. So to add more density, and I know that's one of the code words for Plan OKC, is to add density into the neighborhoods. We've got an awful lot of density. And I know there's a formula that you look at, but I'd like to make that as my request that we should be, Community 2000 should be moved to, I think the right term is urban low. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Hey, just one thing. So you're not included in today's ordinance, right? I mean, your neighborhood is not included.
It was not included on any of those slides.
So that doesn't mean that it stops there, right? Continue with staff, work towards that and an additional comp plan amendment.
So who do we appeal to?
Planning staff.
Right, that lady right there? Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, CF Farrell? Maybe it's Farnhill.
Oh, he's coming.
He's deferring his time to me, so if I run over 5 minutes, am I okay?
Yeah, I'll give you about 7.5.
Okay. My name is Bruce Sankey. My address is 3108 Northwest 54th Street, which is in Mayfair Hills, which is a smallish neighborhood of 75 homes down the hill south from the Baptist Integris Hospital complex. Our neighborhood has submitted 2 multi-page letters, 2 distinct sets of petitions, plus a separate analysis related to Comprehensive Plan Amendment 2408 and the boundaries proposed for the accessory dwelling unit ordinance. In considering this agenda item, there is no shortage of issues we could talk about, but I would like to focus on one aspect that is or should be a hide-your-face embarrassment to the city planning department and by extension, this commission. And that is the 2 staff reports and 2 appendices that were prepared under the aegis of the planning department to guide your consideration of CPA 2024-08. One staff report and appendix was prepared for the January 23rd commission meeting, and the second report and appendix was issued for today's meeting. The 2 sets of documents are largely identical, except for the stupid, careless, and sloppy mistakes in the January 23rd document that were identified in 2 critiques issued by neighborhoods and corrected in the report and appendix issued for this meeting, with one exception, and that's the description of Mayfair Hills neighborhood. For some reason, the staff cannot get the description of our neighborhood correct. On the staff agenda, the very first item, we are listed as Area E. The description is northwest of 50th Street, south of 54th Street, east of North Independence Avenue, and west of Drexel. We are 375 feet east of Independence Avenue. Not a single residence or property in our neighborhood butts up against Independence Avenue. So they can't even get our description right. One of the neighborhoods that will be affected by your decision today, Douglas Edgemere, submitted an objective, forceful, and well-documented 7-page analysis of the initial staff report and appendix, not only calling them error-prone, but also extremely biased and misleading. We agree with that analysis. For its part, Mayfair Hills tendered a 5-page critique of the initial staff report and appendix. It said the planning documents were shot through with errors, meaningless generalities, planning profession gibberish, questionable criteria, specious reasoning, and sophistry. We heard more from the planning department along those lines today. One of the worst aspects of the staff report is the repeated use of generalities with no definitions or specifics. For example, in listing the advantages of keeping density closer to downtown, the report says that higher density areas close to downtown are easier to serve, that concentrating development near downtown minimizes financial strain to the city budget, that vibrant, walkable neighborhoods near downtown enhance the overall quality of life. Not once are we told what constitutes closer, close, near, or even downtown. The nearest thing to distance definition is a map on page 4 of the appendix. The map uses concentric circles to show distance. The legend with the map states Mayfair Hills is 4.7 miles from downtown. The point seems to be that Mayfair Hills really isn't that far from downtown, that 4.7 miles, that Mayfair Hills is close, near to downtown. The fact is, Mayfair Hills is 8.5 miles from downtown. Until we have flying buses, taxis, autos, and Uber helicopters, or we can personally fly like the crow flies, maps like the one used in the staff report are completely meaningless. Mayfair Hills is not close or near downtown. It is 8.5 miles away by the shortest traffic route possible. The crux of the staff reports and appendixes, however, is a scoring system the planning department developed, rather conjured up is a more accurate description of how the system was created. It was invented supposedly to objectively analyze and compare the 7 neighborhoods. Instead, Douglas Edgemere questions whether the planning metrics has any true meaning whatsoever. Mayfair Hills uses terms like baffling, egregious, inappropriate, and meaningless to describe the scoring system. Mayfair Hill recalculated its neighborhood scoring using planning staff scoring criteria, modified only slightly to reflect accuracy, fairness, and reality, and its score comes out to be 9 or 10, not 17 as graded by the planning department. There's enough arbitrariness and short-sightedness in the planning department scoring as applied to Mayfair Hills as to cast doubt whether the staff ever looked beyond aerial maps to size up our neighborhood. But as disconcerting, deceitful, and disingenuous as the planning staff reports and appendixes are, it is equally discouraging that there appears to have been no effort by members of this commission to challenge the documents and their analysis. All the changes made to the February 27 report and appendix were lifted from the Mayfair Hills critique. Missing as evidence, this commission read the documents critically and challenged them between January 23rd and today. We are eager to see what criteria, reasoning, and matrix you use this afternoon to make this decision, since the planning department reports and appendix appear to have been created by a bunch of middle school students at Taft Middle School. Thank you.
Wow. Just a few things on that. I'm sorry if maybe some of the things that you've heard from us you've misconstrued or seemed ambiguous or even untrue. I did read your reports, and I do agree with your determination of where Mayfield Hills lies. So I'm going to actually recommend including them.
Thank you very much for that.
In removal. Just know that for everyone else. I mean, there's a lot of time, a lot of effort that's put into these documents, and to hear that kind of wording to explain it is difficult. So
I think I can speak
I'm going
for...
to say I also am going to vote to include Mayfair Hills in the UL, but not by any means because of your letter and the way that you worded it and the insinuations that you've made towards staff who've worked incredibly hard, as have we, and there's no bias in this, and we are looking at these neighborhoods objectively, and we do know where your neighborhood is. So to suggest that no one knows what we're doing and we're a bunch of middle school children here, I take offense to. So thank you, sir. I've heard your points. I also read your letter in advance.
Your father will be happy.
All right. I mean, I think I can speak for everyone up here who are volunteers. We have dedicated many, many, many hours to this topic, reading the research, familiarizing ourselves. So, you know, the fact that I can't change the way that you think, but, you know, I can't agree with you. So thank you for your time. So we'll hear from Gary Jones next.
I'm going to modify my speech just a little bit. Gary Jones with the Oklahoma City Metropolitan Association of Realtors, 3131. One of the things that I think is a little frustrating that I've witnessed in this whole entire process is people are trying to pick winners and losers. And I think what has gotten lost is that these conversations have been going on for years. They started with Plan OKC, with a whole bunch of volunteers, with staff, with research that was utilized in order to put forth a plan to address what we're all excited about, and that is Oklahoma City is growing. I'm old enough, because I'm in that 60-plus range, remember when we were all like, what's gonna happen to our city? Our downtown is dying, we're not growing, things are really stale, what's gonna happen? And people came together, created a plan, implemented a strategy, and we are all the beneficiaries of it. Unfortunately, with growth comes challenges, and we've seen them. Congestion, taxing on utilities and services, more than what maybe had originally been planned. But what I can tell you is this, is that the people that came together were not trying to pick winners and losers. All they were trying to do is identify a way to grow this city that would meet the needs of all of its citizens, whether you were part of the high income group or if you were the low income group. We all share this one common human need: housing. And what's sad is that some have even attacked my organization like we're trying to do this in order to make money. The truth is, we were invited by Mayor Holt and some other members of the council about 6 years ago to participate in an affordable housing study. And on that housing study, several realtors realized, oh my God, Oklahoma City has an affordable housing problem, and we need to work collectively to address it. That has been our only focus. We have used our National Association's research in order to look at best practices. What they told us was, LUDAs is a good way in order to create a path for development, because developers understand and can see and understand what the city is trying to do as far as its overall plan. Determining whether it's urban medium and urban low, I'll leave that to you and the staff. That's not our fight. Our fight is, we believe that LUDAs are a good thing, but we also know that if we don't stay true to what LUDAs are supposed to do, then we defeat the purpose of LUDAs. LUDAs are part of a planning strategy that cities across this country have utilized in order to address housing needs across their city. It can work for us if we remember that it is part of planning out smartly how the city of Oklahoma City can grow and how we can address the diverse needs of our community. Our hope is that we look at this as a planning process and not one that deals with winners and losers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Next, we'll hear from Landry Willis.
Landry Willis, 301 North Walker Avenue, and work with Gary at Oakmar. And yeah, we just wanted to highlight some of our concerns and offer our perspective as you guys consider the amendments to the LUDA map. This decision will have lasting impacts on generations of residents in these neighborhoods. While we appreciate the engagement of our fellow neighbors in this process, it's important to recognize that Oklahoma City is at a pivotal moment. A long overdue update to zoning and coding is essential to meet the demands of our growing population. These updates are structured around the LUDA map. Changing a neighborhood sectionation to urban low may address those concerns in opposition today, but will leave future generations grappling with rising housing costs and missing out on the many benefits of a denser neighborhood. Some of those benefits include greater housing availability, more walkable communities, better public services, and a strong local economy. We understand some of the residents' concerns about how an increased density may impact neighborhood character. We share that concern. That's why we support expanding the use of urban conservation districts, UCDs, as a way for neighborhoods to establish guidelines that reflect their unique character. UCDs already exist in several neighborhoods, and city staff have indicated that they plan to update and add UCDs as part of the zoning code revision. Allowing for flexible growth while preserving key neighborhood features such as building materials, design elements, ensures that Oklahoma City can accommodate future housing needs without sacrificing the identity of its neighborhoods. We all know that this discussion has stemmed from the ADU ordinance and their allowance for ADUs by right in the urban medium ludus. However, we urge you not to let this singular issue dictate your decision. City staff is already working on policy updates that would allow ADUs by right in all ludus, including the urban low. We hope your decision will be based on the staff's established criteria in the staff report, which evaluates neighborhoods using best practices to determine the most effective land use for our city. We ask that you make this decision with long-term growth, affordability, and the generational impact, ensuring that Oklahoma City remains a place where future generations can live, work, and thrive. Thank you.
Thank you. Gayla Kubeka? You didn't? I have a form. Gayla Kubeka. You're not required to, but.
I'm Gayla Kubeka, and I live at 807 Northwest 47th Street. I feel like when I bought my house in 1984, it was my first home, our neighborhood wasn't affordable for me. For what I was an admissions counselor at Oklahoma City University, and I had to borrow $10,000 from my dad to get into that house. But our neighborhood has been affordable. I've been able to purchase 4 rent houses, and I'm real proud of that. I keep my rent houses affordable. My tenants have been there for ages. One of my tenants is our state representative. She's been in one of my houses for 9 years. All of my rents are under $1,000. I mow the yards and I furnish all their appliances. I feel like with the ADUs that are coming in is so that people can build these bigger houses in our neighborhood. And our neighborhood is no longer an affordable neighborhood, which makes me really sad. My son, who's with me today, is 33. And he would love to buy a house. He was born in this neighborhood, but there is no way that he could afford one. So I feel like by you all letting people come in and build these houses, it's making our land more expensive and less affordable. So we're no longer an affordable neighborhood for people to move in and first-time homeowners. Thank you. Any questions?
All right. Any questions for Ms. Kubeka? No? Thank you. And then I have Kyle Kubeka. No. All right. Is it Mert Reeser? Matt. Sorry, Matt Reeser. Waving, okay. Thank you. Beth Reeser.
I'm Beth Reeser. I live at 2104 Northwest 60th Street in Belle Isle. So we've had lots and lots of discussion about all of this. I just would like for you to think about that we live in a neighborhood that when we bought into the neighborhood, I think Oklahoma City has iconic neighborhoods. And if you want to attract people to come, I think you should preserve those iconic neighborhoods. I have lived back to back with an Airbnb backing up to my house, plus a 2-story garage apartment that's between me and that house that backs up. Unknown to us, people who were renting that house were tearing it up. They tore out the dishwasher, they tore out everything. They parked in the front yard. I called the city 3 times. I mean, I want you to know this. I called and asked for help. And they did not have a permit, and they were never required to get a permit. And I told the city they did, and they checked and said, yes, I know that they didn't have a permit. So I want you to know this. This is where some of the neighborhoods are coming from. I see across Villa, lots have been bought. They've been divided, and there are 2- and 3-story houses on 2 of them on a lot, going up, high. They're $750,000 houses. They're for rent now for a high price. That's not affordable housing. So just think about preserving the iconic neighborhoods so maybe we can. I do a lot of volunteer work. I work with foster children all the time. Maybe our neighborhood's a very strong neighborhood, and maybe we can help some of these people get some affordable housing. But don't break down our neighborhood to make that happen. And I'm also worried about the infrastructure. We have old water lines, old sewer lines, old electric lines. We have gas pipeline, a lot of it going through Belle Isle. So, how are all these ADUs going to fit into all of this? And we have water mains, big ones break. I had one right at my curve break, and they had to dig down to get to the pipe that was broken. The men that got down in there, you couldn't see the tops of their heads. So it was a big line. So there are a lot of things to consider before you start having ADUs approved. But I know that Belle Isle is now redesignated as urban low, but I also know that there is a bigger picture that it's possible that still there could be ADUs in our neighborhood, but there needs to be a lot of work about all of that and a lot of permitting requirements before it happens. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Reeser. Beverly Brown?
Hi, thanks for giving me a minute. I'll keep it short. I'm also a resident of Belle Isle, and I would just like to thank you for all the work that you've done on this and giving me a minute to speak with you. I'm grateful for you all carving Belle Isle out of this designation. I'm right now, I've bought another house in the neighborhood that I'm redoing, and I'm also having to repair my sewer pipes in my old house. So I'm intimately familiar with the infrastructure right now. But anyway, I'm grateful for your help in removing us from the designation, and I look forward to coming to other meetings if that's necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. John Cousins?
Hi, my name is John Cousins. I live at 400 Northwest 44th Street, and I'm the president of our neighborhood association, Douglas Edgemere Neighbors. And I did want to say thank you all for your public service. I know that you're not paid, and I know that you put in a lot of time with this work, and that helps make us have a wonderful city. So I do want to say thank you. And I have some views that are counter to the reports that I've seen from the staff reports with planning. But my background was examining banks and quantitative economics, and so I'm just kind of a naturally look with a critical eye. And from the staff report, I think that Douglas Edgemere still would qualify well within the urban low district, and so we're asking that Douglas Edgemere Neighbors be changed to urban low. And also the description of the southern boundary says that it's Helm Street, but it's actually Northwest 43rd Street. Helm Street is to the west of our neighborhood, and so there's just an error made on that. The last time we spoke, I did a presentation to show Douglas Edgemere and Edgemere Heights were connected, And, you know, we were kind of on the eastern side of the development, and I considered us to be some of the first suburbs of Oklahoma City. We weren't over there close to Classen where the trolley cars were, and there's a lot more density within the area of that original car that went up to Belle Isle and came back, so I think some of the numbers, one might just assume that what our neighborhoods are really made of, but when we go through the matrix, I'll be brief with it, I think you'll understand that, yeah, those do look a little bit different. I've presented an analysis of the staff report, and I did call it biased. And I just wanted to give one example. When I presented before, I showed that we had 5.85 dwelling units per acre in our neighborhood. Plan Oklahoma City says the range would be between 4 and 8. We're currently graded urban medium, which is a range between 10 and 40. And for us to get to 10 and 40, you're going to have to rip out most of our iconic mid-century modern neighborhood. In the staff report, they had the first 4 neighborhoods, and then after we gained favor, would be considered for urban low as well, they added the other 3 neighborhoods at the bottom. Well, it was interesting that one of the descriptions for the first 4 was that dwelling unit per acre, 4 to 8. They said they all met that. And when it got to our neighborhoods, that was just ignored. It wasn't part of the discussion. And so I felt like that was a bias. And I then presented it on a side-by-side basis. I know you all have an awful lot to read, but there are a lot of differences in the way they were described, and I'm not sure that our neighborhood was accurately depicted in that. On the matrix at the back, which was shown up here, I can't find that matrix anywhere. I understand how those elements could have something to do with it, but it seems like it was kind of, maybe this is the first use of it. I'm not, the only thing I find in Plan Oklahoma City is the dwelling units per acre to define this. But as we go through this matrix, I recalculated our score for our neighborhood and for Edgemere Heights too. I have copies. If you all would like them, I can give them to you, or is that going to maybe getting into too much detail, but I could just kind of summarize real quickly. The age of our neighborhood, we were graded a 3, which would be before 1939, and we have 2 plats in our neighborhood. Edgemere Terrace wasn't even platted until 1990, and I did a statistical sample of the age of the neighborhood from the county assessor, and our age of the homes in our neighborhood is 50.4 years. So we're in the category would be a 1 instead of a 3. On connectivity, we were graded a 3, but the description for longer blocks, which we have, and regular grid, and some sidewalks, we don't even have any sidewalks, we would be graded a 1 instead of a 3. So that's that's 4 points different just on the first 2. Our blocks don't have.
Mr. Cousins, 30 seconds.
Okay. With the bike network, I didn't think we had a 3. We have some paint put on Chartel. It's still a slope street with gravel on there. The vacant lots are not accurate. We'd score a 1, and so I did submit this to the zoning yesterday because I was just spending all this time compiling it, but I show that our score would be an 11, and I think that along with the dwelling units per acre would support consider changing us to urban low. Would anyone like copies of these, or?
You can pass them around, yeah. Any questions for Mr. Cousins? Nope. All right. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Next, I have Pete Gelvin.
Good afternoon. We have 5 minutes, is that
Good
correct?
afternoon. Yes, sir.
I'm watching this then. My name is Pete Galvin. I live at 3105 Northwest 52nd Street in Mayfair Hills neighborhood. And I want to thank the commissioners and the staff. We are grateful for your work. But I do have some objections to the scoring that staff did for our neighborhood, and I wanted to just go over the ones I have a dispute about that I don't think are accurate. The first thing I'd like to point out, though, is our score is 17, which is just the minimum you have to be in order to be a urban medium. So just 1 point difference would take us down to urban low. So that's why might seem picky on some of the scoring, but I think it does make a significant difference in our case. The age they have for us is I do agree that is correct. The connectivity, though, I think it would be more of a 0. We really don't fit under any of the 4 listings, and I am going by the Appendix A for today's meeting, if you want to follow along with that. But we do not have any regular grid patterns in our neighborhood. In fact, our neighborhood is such that you can't really drive through it. You have to make all kinds of curves in order to go from one side of the neighborhood to the other. So, and we don't have any sidewalks either. So I think the correct score on that would be maybe something more than a 0, but definitely not a 3. As for our transit access, one of the things I think that need to be pointed out is that the staff has measured our neighborhood from Hamilton, which the neighborhood border is actually 1 block over. I'm sorry, I've said that backwards. They've measured it from Independence as being the west edge of our neighborhood, where actually it's Hamilton. So these quarter-mile distances that they are measuring from are off from just from that mistake. So that would be for the transit access. Then I would say we are more than a quarter mile from those areas, and we have no biking infrastructure in our neighborhood at all, since there are no sidewalks, and we also have just standard neighborhood streets, so they're not very wide where biking would be easily occur in our neighborhood. And again, it really doesn't go anywhere. If you're going into our neighborhood, you're going because you live there. You're not going from one place to another because you can't really get in and out through it. The other thing I would take issue with is there's the zoning areas. It asks how close are we to retail. And if you're talking about true retail, that where you actually go in a store and buy something, then we are not close to that. That we have some business areas in our neighborhood, or I should say on the edges of our neighborhood, but they are just office buildings or medical, like Jim Thorpe rehab area borders our neighborhood, but that's not really, I don't think, the retail business that we're looking at when you're talking about zoning issues. And then the last issue what I take issue with was our proximity to downtown, and I think Mr. Sankey pointed out that that downtown measurement is as the crow flies and not as how long it takes you to get downtown, or how long distance you have to drive, which is a lot more than just the 5 mile limit that we should have scored at. Would be a 0 instead of the 1 that they gave us. Lastly, I'd like to point out that we submitted some petitions from our neighborhood, had like 59 signatures that said that we should be taken out from the urban medium designation, and I don't know why they weren't attached to the appendix, but they were submitted. I think each staff member, each commission member got them. So, and I think that concludes my remarks and my 5 minutes. Thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Mr. Gelman.
your time.
Next I have, is it David Thatch?
I'm David Thatch, and I live at 2324 Bellevue Terrace, Oklahoma City, and I'm the Vice President of Wyoming's Belle Isle Neighborhood Association. Our neighborhood has worked for decades to maintain a good quality of life, and we pay for off-duty Oklahoma City police patrols. We pay to maintain the parkway along Pennsylvania. Our neighborhood takes that upon itself to make our neighborhood a good place. We have had significant issues with unlicensed Airbnb operations inside of homes and homes that have existing attached accessory dwelling units in the backyard. We've had guests at these Airbnbs who were parked on the lawn with an AR-15s in their vehicles sitting on the lawn, and the neighbor across the street is trying to sell their house in an open house, and you can imagine. Anyway, we use our streets for walking, jogging, and biking. We do not have sidewalks. Additional parking on the streets would endanger children and people walking with their pets if we have cars parked up and down the streets because of increased density. We met with Janice Powers back in August, and we had 65 neighbors at that meeting, and we took a vote at the end of that meeting. Every neighbor at that meeting did not want ADUs in the neighborhood. So we are hoping that you exclude us from the exclude Belle Isle from the urban medium LUDA map, and thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you. Bruce Bacchus.
My name is Bruce, and I am an alcoholic. Wrong meeting, sorry. Where are we going? But I wasn't one before this issue was brought up. Anyway, I too will address the staff report because I find it to be full of inaccuracies, and I find it to be arbitrary, not objective. And I'll present my case, and I know I have 4 minutes and 37 seconds now. I find it inconceivable that the scoring system in the staff report was developed without the input of people that actually live in these neighborhoods. I find that to be, this is America. This is Oklahoma. We have a standard of kindness and working together. We've been to staff meetings. We've been to planning commission meetings. We've met with our counselor. We've have coffee shop meetings. We've had neighborhood meetings. We've joined with other neighborhoods to have meetings. We've shown an intense amount of care for the preservation of our neighborhoods as we know them, and yet staff report comes out with a grid that gives us a total of 20. I did my own math. I came up with a total of 7. And the point there is that this grid, this matrix, is an arbitrary method to give weight to their decisions. So I'm against the staff report. ADUs have their place. I'm not against ADUs. It's been said that Edmond has ADUs, Norman has ADUs. Those ADUs are appropriate. They're right around the campus. They need more housing close to campus. Seattle's been lifted up. Portland's been lifted up. Those two cities are surrounded by mountains and oceans, and Oklahoma City has no boundaries. There's not a pressure to create ADUs other than trying to find affordable housing, and I am all for affordable housing. ADUs are not the answer to the affordable housing crisis. They're not even close. To build an ADU, you'd have to charge an exorbitant amount of rent just to get your mortgage paid off. So, I'm a feely person. I'm emotional. It feels like to me that the strategy from staff is to just wear us out where we finally just give out and give in. But I'm here to say I'm exhausted by this process and the amount of time that it's taken, but I'm not even close to giving up yet. I'm here for the fight, for the duration, and I come with a suggestion. I'm not just going to criticize without having a better idea. And the better idea is already on the table, but we can make that better. The better idea is to have ADUs approved through the SPUD process. Oh, but the SPUD costs $1,600. Well, lower the price of it. But a new ADU is going to cost $150,000 to $200,000 based on today's construction costs. And so make it easier to do a SPUD for an ADU, but allow the people to have a vote on what's going on around them. It's just not American, in my mind, to do blanket coverage of ADUs. And this is just, by the way, the first domino to fall, as I understand it, because the next domino is that we include the urban light districts and just put the ADU coverage over the entire city. I mean, that was brought up in one of our meetings with staff and with the counselor. So, councilman, let common sense prevail. Let the SPUD process work as it's working now. Make it more affordable, streamline it, but allow people to vote and have a say on what happens if somebody wants to put an ADU next door. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bacchus.
Any questions? I'm ready.
Any questions for Mr. Bacchus?
We're talking about a LUDA map amendment, not ADUs today, so I don't have any questions.
All right, next I have Mr. Scott Abel.
For brevity, I'm going to defer to Diane and John here because I don't, they'll cover it.
Okay. All right, Ms. Diane Miller.
I can hardly walk after all that sitting. My name is Diane Miller. I live at 514 Northwest 43rd, and I've lived there for over 40 years. The Planning Commission staff, I'm working on 2 hours of sleep and a little caffeine, so bear with me. The Planning Commission staff reports dated 1/23 and 2/27 this year are full, and I shuddered to read what I read in the reports, and I don't say this lightly, but they were full of erroneous, inconsistent, and I think deceptive information, especially in the comparison data between UL and UM neighborhoods. Lisa Chronister has reportedly described proximity to transit as 1/4 mile. The staff report claims that DEN is in close proximity to rapid bus transit, even though DEN homes are between 1.2 and 0.4 miles from RBT. And so that report is false. And there are no sidewalks between DEN and the RBT. Plan OKC states that UM should provide pedestrian access and provide sidewalk connections to nearby uses. Let's see, staff also reports that DEN is near proposed future commuter rail stations. Now that's absurd, as that won't happen for probably 25 years, and if it does happen in 25 years, it'll serve many other neighborhoods in this proposal besides DEN, and yet DEN is the only neighborhood mentioned with rail service, showing the extreme bias of the planning staff. The only objective measure for urban low and urban medium, as described in Plan OKC, is the formula for units per acre, and that formula shows that DEN is, as John said, 5.85 units per acre, well within the 4 to 8 urban low range. The planning of staff chooses to ignore this and focuses instead on their subjective criteria, which I think that is, which is not part of the UL measure, and even with that, they apply it inconsistently. Plan OKC's explanation of UM reads, priorities for UM areas include infill development on vacant lots. DEN has no vacant lots. Rehab of underutilized property. DEN has no underutilized property. And development that supports revitalization of distressed neighborhoods. How shocking. That's an insult. DEN is none of this, and I will explain a side-by-side plan. The Plan OKC also says to avoid development in floodways, and they include both UL and UM in that, and I'll talk about that later. Let's look at what staff has written in its description of their chosen UL neighborhoods versus those they're determined to designate as UM. And you can plainly see they pick and choose which criteria they use to address, and they are not consistent at all. Much of the criteria is not criteria in Plan OKC. So the staff reports indicate that in UL, single family dominates. Well, that also describes DEN, but that criteria is not listed for us. And it says that in UL, density range is from 4 to 8 for the density per acre. Well, as I said, DEN is 5.85, but staff refuses to acknowledge this data as correct. They said that in UL, homes are close together, which limits rear yard infill. Majority of DEN homes are also close and within 10 feet at the most between houses, although that criteria was not explained in the DEN part of the report. It also says that UL limited availability of vacant lots and no abandoned structures. We have no vacant lots and no abandoned structures. So the staff report falsely states that DEN has vacant lots and abandoned structures. I emailed Lisa Chronister and asked that she identify those parcels which were identified as such. She answered that someone else would get back to me. That never happened. It says that UL, full utilization of existing properties. DEN has full utilization of existing properties, but that wasn't part of the criteria we received. It says that UL mostly designated neighborhoods, neighborhood streets, a few minor connections. That's the same with DEN, but they did not put that criteria in our description. They said that ULs have no sidewalks. Well, staff describes DEN as walkable. Again, DEN and Edgemere Heights have no sidewalks. Even the major streets are dangerous due to potholes where drivers swerve to miss them, and when they're full of water, they splash water on pedestrians and our dogs. And constant water runoff flooding in the streets along the curbs from Chartel to Harvey gets slippery with algae and are dangerous to walk along. The staff report says that walkable streets with existing proposed sidewalks, there are no existing sidewalks. Only proposed sidewalk is dependent on the passage of future bond that only places sidewalks on Walker, which already prohibits curb parking. No sidewalks exist where increased density is proposed, where it will be unsafe to walk. Throughout DEN, affordable houses are being leveled to build mansions costing $1 million to buyers, and that's not an exaggeration. Why doesn't the Planning Commission do something creative and more current about ongoing demolition and affordable housing if you're serious about the affordable issue? DEN is well-suited, more dense development due to existing infrastructure that supports higher density living. OKC Utilities reported that DEN's aging infrastructure is unable to accommodate building at 43rd and Francis, and new homes are causing flooding in DEN, and we have pictures available. My own underground storm shelter in my garage has been flooding and leaking several times from below, not from above. And the cross beams under my wood
Ms.
floors
Miller, you've had your 5
have been
minutes.
replaced
Please
due
wrap
to
up.
occasional water under my house causing rot. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Miller? No. Thank you. Ruth Brown. Okay. Martha Jett.
My name is Martha Jett. I live at 4914 North Harvey Parkway. I'm in Douglas Edgemere neighborhood. I was going to speak about one thing, but I'm going to change my mind. We appreciate all of you being here and giving your time, and I equally appreciate every person who comes up here for these hearings, every time you have one, whether it's our group or any other group. We all have a right to speak. I know you all are bored to death of this. We're not bored to death of it. We're asking you all for help. We're not here to complain. We're here to ask for help. You're the guiding force. We want our neighborhoods protected. We don't want tear downs. We don't want ridiculous things coming in there from a blind eye. I don't know where any of you live, but do you not ever have to worry about a tear down and in your home next door, 2 big monster structures that can't sell? They don't sell. They're overpriced. They don't sell. They just sit there. Are you not concerned about that in your own neighborhood? Do you not find your own neighborhood unique and you live there for a reason? We're just trying to express to you what our lives are like, what our neighborhoods are like, and ask you all to help us. I know we get a little fussy, but we feel like we should get fussy. And you guys are kind of fussy sometimes too. So if we could all just take a breath and use common sense. Is this really going to help anything? Is it? We don't even know why it's being changed. I'm sorry, not about ADUs. Please, let's all try to respect each other. We are spending our time up here equally as you are. So if we could just take a breath. Okay, that's all.
Ms. Jett, thank you for your comments. In response to that, so I think we all do worry about each ward in Oklahoma City is very unique. They don't all have the same issues from every ward. So I think each one of us bring a unique perspective. Some of us from a little bit further away standpoint, but some of this is happening right in some of the other commissioners' wards and neighborhoods. So I think we all understand that, and this is a collaborative process, and we want to hear from everyone. And I know there's a lot of people that are passionate about this, and we get that, and we understand it, and we want to hear, but we like to be treated with respect, and we treat you with respect. So I appreciate that little pause and that reminder.
So anything else from any other commissioners?
Are we done with our?
No, we still have a couple. We still have a couple left. Is it Tom Bergman?
Hello, I'd like to. So my name's Tom Bergman. I do live in Douglas, Edgemere. I bought a house there in 2000. Lovely place to live. I've lived all over town, and that's probably my favorite. I'd like to say thank you to staff. I know what that's like. I served 25 years with the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality, and my job, among others, was staff for the Oklahoma Hazardous Materials Response Commission. So sometimes we do a lot of work, and no matter what conclusions we come to, people are not happy with us. I get that. I currently serve on several boards and commissions for the federal government agencies on hazardous materials, I guess just by virtue of the fact that I've done it a long time. So I know what it's like to volunteer your time and also get upset people talking with you. Sometimes there's nothing you can do about that. You know, I get all that. All I wanted to say was thank you for your service. Thank you for your work. I live in a neighborhood. I love my neighborhood, and I'd like to see it continue, but we may not get much choice about that, and I understand that. I've lived there 25 years. I never want to live anywhere else. It's a great place. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bergman. And last, we have Mr. Warrior, who I do not see. So that'll conclude public comment. We can begin our commission discussion. So anyone
have anything else to say?
have anything to add?
If not, I'm ready to make a motion.
Well, I do want to say one thing, is that we're all sitting here because we care about this city. We care very much about it. That's why we serve, and we volunteer for these committees to try to help, make this a better place. So, and I know everyone else here does too, because that's why you spent all this time coming to these meetings, and it's not, it's a big commitment. So thank you all for caring. This has been a long process, and there's a lot been achieved, and I will try to stick with the LUDA because that is what we're talking about today. And like I said in the beginning, I appreciate the technicalities that everyone has dug through and found here, but we're not getting hung up so much on one word here, one word there. Data is one thing, but caring about our unique neighborhoods in this city is another. And so I've taken all that on board, but I've also taken on board my experience in these neighborhoods. I've walked all these neighborhoods. I have family that lives in these neighborhoods. We live in these neighborhoods, and so we care about them and recognize they are all unique. So it's about what is the feel and the form of that neighborhood. So I'm gonna use the words. It's also a form-based approach to what's appropriate in each part of this city. What's already there? What's the potential for other things to be there? And taking all that at face value and really looking at each of these areas, A through G, and applying an approach of not just data, but what belongs and what's there. That's how I have come to my opinion today. And so that's how I'm going to vote based on that. And I think I will leave it with a form-based approach is often a good approach. And it's not about drawing circles and miles or what route you drive or don't drive. So that's all I have to say. But
And I totally agree. I've spent a lot of time in these neighborhoods, all 7 of them, a lot more than I would normally. But I need to see it. I need to feel it, so I can get an idea of, the form of the neighborhood. Does it match? Is it there? And so that's why today I'm willing to make a motion to approve the Comprehensive Plan Amendment 2024-08.
With all
with A, B, C, D, E, F, and G.
All right.
I'm willing to. Yep. I'm willing to third it.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes when available. And that map amendment is recommended for approval. So thank you. So that brings us to the end of our items to be heard for individual consideration, and we move on to additional items, communications reports, planning commission committees.
Well, just on behalf of our task force, we're ready to hang up our cleats on this deal. I would like to, and I think what we heard here today was an awful lot of frustration that I hope we as a city are able to kind of learn from as we're moving forward here with the rollout of the code update. I mean, we have put a lot of eggs in that basket, and almost daily I hear somebody say, we'll deal with that, And I think as we move forward with that, we're going to need to make more effort at community engagement. I think it has shown through this process that what we have been doing is just not enough. So other than that, I don't really have comments to make.
All right, thank you.
I do thank the neighbors who've come today. I know this is not easy, and it hasn't been just one meeting, and you've all really hung in there and worked hard, and we do appreciate that. We also do appreciate staff and the work that they do. I'm absolutely certain that everybody here is working in good faith toward what they think is the best thing for Oklahoma City. That's why they call them horse races. People disagree about that. So we are where we are, and we're moving forward from here. So.
Thank you. Commissioner Meek?
We had our last Vision Zero Advisory Board meeting Tuesday, and it also passed council. So that's my report. Thank you.
Commissioner Newman? No. Commissioner Govine?
Nope.
Commissioner Noble?
I just want to say a little bit about that, what we just went through, and the idea that maybe we do, between us and staff, have to have more detail. And I think the new code update will have the more detail. I think this shows that that is going to be very important with the community engagement and how people feel about their neighborhoods and how strongly they do. So a lot more work to be done.
Yeah.
And I think I also heard that Jeremy's available for another committee.
Oh, well, I mean, he finished one, so. So the only thing that I would have to add is that if we're going to introduce a new scoring system to justify something that, I mean, that maybe there's an opportunity for input and feedback on that. Maybe it's a study session. And it also might be an opportunity to educate the public. So I just, looking back, there might have been a little bit different way to handle that. But anyway, that's what I have. Planning department.
Yeah, a few things. Well, just a quick comment on the scoring system. Really, calling it a scoring system, I think, may be a bit of a misnomer that we heard, but really it's the intent was to get everything in a kind of like, here's all the things, we're trying to be objective, here's all the consideration. So it's really just a guide, and I know that, you have to assign a value to something, but that's how it was, it was like, 0 to 3 instead of like 50.63 or something. And it was just meant to be a guide to decision making and to help the folks that were in the neighborhoods to see, well, what's the thinking here, Because if you just look through the narrative like we normally do, it can be maybe a little more challenging, honestly. I think the goal was to make it more understandable. But yes, point taken, it definitely was new because, this was kind of a new thing for us. So, but a couple other things. Yes, Vision Zero was adopted by council, so we're moving on to try and seek a grant for implementation and also implement that through the bond. But staff doesn't get any rest. We have downtown strategic plan coming up, and there's an RFP out for that, so you'll be hearing more about that. Our Classen transit-oriented development plan, also we have funding for that, and that will be, RFP will be coming out soon. We're waiting on a federal government for, well, there's a whole story there, but we think we're good. We're just waiting on a signature from the federal government. So there's probably a great opportunity for you to serve, Commissioner. Oh, yeah, Commissioner Meek. Yeah. I just wanted to update you all on those. Oh, and as far as the engagement, yes, point taken on that too. We've already had discussions about getting additional resources to do that this summer because there's it seems that no matter how much is done, it's never enough. And so because it's really difficult to get to everybody, no matter what the city does and all the ways we push out information. So it is a challenge, but we do, as you said, there's a lot of stuff with the code update that we need to communicate. And in talking with Councilman Cooper and Commissioner Powers recently and some others about moving forward this summer, we have a draft kind of base code for the urban medium for the area that most of these folks are living in. But the intent now is to take that and use it as a point of departure to craft something that these neighborhoods and others like them, like the UCDs that were mentioned, will be, I guess, more of a urban conservation type code. And whether we're not sure exactly what it looks like, But we know we have a lot of engagement to work in. In talking with some of these folks recently, is trying to make them aware that, hey, that was always the intent, and also we'll be coming to you soon to ask you to participate once again. We're starting with urban medium, so we'll still be engaging with those that were kind of removed from urban medium today. The timing may be a little bit different for them, but we'll still keep them informed and keep them in process. So let me know if you have any questions about any of that, but that's all I've got.
Thank you. Municipal Counselor's Office? Nothing? Citizens to be heard? See none? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.